Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
A lot of people send me stories that involve tow trucks and towing companies because they know that I used to drive a tow truck years and years and years ago, back right out of high school. Drove a tow truck for a little while. Well, here's a story from Kansas City, Missouri. KCTV ran this. Kelvin sent me. Thanks a lot. Gabby Lumma wrote this. North Kansas City man denied reimbursement from city after a wrongful tow of 3 cars. Not 1, not 2, 3. One Kansas City man reached out to KCTV5 after he said his cars were towed 3 times and they shouldn't have been. He says it's a flaw in the system. Now, the system he's describing is trying to get reimbursed because he had to pay after the vehicles were towed wrongfully, he says, and he wants to get his money back, and there is apparently an appeal process. But the appeal process is slow and doesn't really quite work that well. So for months, this man said his homeowners association has been complaining about cars he owns parked in the neighborhood. So he's trying to follow the parking rules, but over time, 3 of his cars were eventually ticketed and towed. He said, I got up one morning to take the kids to school, my car was gone. So I thought maybe it was stolen. And I checked the tow lot, and it was there. So he retrieved his cars from the city tow lot, and he disputed the tickets. And he said that the cars were not parked illegally. All 3 tickets were dismissed by the city. He then filed for reimbursement for the towing, to which he never received a response. He then went to the lot where the cars were towed to, spoke to somebody there, and he was assured his requests would be answered. So on the 11th of June, supposedly, a letter went out denying his requests, he said. The letters were dated the 11th, but were postmarked the 16th. They were sent to me with a 10-day time period that said specifically in the letter, you've got 10 days from the date of this letter. But they didn't send it right away. I didn't actually get that letter until the 20th, which would have given him possibly 1 day to do something about this. So he tried to file an appeal with 1 day left in the 10-day window, which was denied by city officials who emailed him saying, it appears the deadline was not met. Your applications were received outside of the 10 calendar day requirement. He says despite his efforts, communications ceased from the city thereafter. That's the last he heard from them. So he says they sat on it for 5 days. It just seems like this is a common procedure to not allow people to get their reimbursement for tows. So here's what I can tell you. If you're involved in a process, and there's what they call an administrative process that you have to go through to try to get something back like this, the administrative process fails, he can now file a lawsuit. I don't know how much the towing was. It doesn't say in the story. But I'm betting it was a few $100s, especially if you added all 3 of them together. And so the question then becomes, is it worth suing somebody for a few $100s? On principle, yes. Economically, possibly not. But you might be able to do it in small claims court, although it depends on the rules in Missouri as to whether or not you can sue an entity like that in small claims court. Some states' small claims courts only allow people to sue people, meaning that corporations can't even use small claims court as a plaintiff or a defendant. But it depends on the state. I'm not speaking to every state. I'm simply pointing out that some states do that. However, the fact that they postmarked something the 16th but dated it the 11th is something I think a judge would have sympathy for. Because the whole point behind having a 10-day window is we're going to give you 10 days. You don't get forever, but you get 10 days. And 10 days is generally enough time to take care of something unless like you're out of the country or something. But when something is postmarked 5 days after it's dated, it sounds like somebody slow walked it to the post office. And of course, why would they do that? Are they really, really incompetent, or are they trying to make it to where you can't really follow up on this? And that's the weird part, because the administrative process, when you go to court and you want to argue about whether or not it was fair, That's the kind of thing a judge is going to look at and go, okay, let me get this straight. You guys type a letter on the 11th, and it doesn't get postmarked for 5 days? Let me guess. It doesn't take 5 days to go from the post office to this guy, although it might nowadays, but in the old days it wouldn't. And you can burn up half the appellate time without the person even knowing what their rights are? That doesn't sound right. I can picture a judge saying maybe 10 days when you receive the letter, but 10 days from the typing of the letter, that's not something within the control of the person who's filing the appeal. So it is a very, very strange situation, and it does sound inherently unfair. And that is something you hear about when you start talking about filing lawsuits after failing going through some kind of procedure like this. Because we've talked before about due process and when you're entitled to due process. And due process, at its most basic, means that you have the right to know the charges against you or what you're fighting, or you have the right to know what it's all about, and a meaningful opportunity to be heard. So if it's criminal charges, you need to know what the charges are and have an opportunity to defend yourself. In a case like this, you need to be able to appeal a bad decision when it came to they towed your cars, they took your money. You want your money back. And so this isn't a criminal situation, but it does involve money, so it has some value. And so a meaningful ability to do something about this would be, you can file an appeal and be heard. And for them to say, oh, you filed your appeal a day late after we sent you your notice of appeal 5 days late regarding the rules of the appeal. And again, I can picture a judge saying that is inherently unfair. So the next step here, the guy could, if he wanted to, most likely file a lawsuit, say I want my money back. I'm not sure what 3 towing bills are, because there's a good chance that they're done at night. They may have cost more than if they're done during the day. I'm not sure how far away the impound yard is. That might play into it as well. But one of the interesting things to look at, and I'm just thinking out loud here, which I do occasionally, I think out loud, is that if this has happened to this guy, it makes you wonder if it's happened to anybody else. And if it's happened to anybody else, maybe some attorney should take a look at filing a class action and saying, hey, I got an issue here. We have a municipality that tows vehicles apparently. And when the vehicles get towed, even wrongfully, the people here can't get their money back because they should be able to, but the process is designed to where you can't actually have a meaningful appeal. And now this is just a skeptical me thinking again out loud. I'm inclined to think that when rules like this are slanted so heavily in favor of somebody, they did that on purpose. And so when they're, like I said, sending out the letters 5 days after they're typed to say, here's how you appeal this. By the way, you got 10 days, starting 5 days ago. They don't make mistakes like that by accident. It's not a mistake. It's a mistake they've made on purpose because it benefits them. It benefits them. So I'm just a guy in Michigan thinking out loud, but an attorney down there ought to take a close look at this and go, gee, I wonder if there's enough people out there to turn this into a class action, because that might be fun. And then a judge can ask them, where does this rule come from? That you've got the right to wait 5 days before sending them their 10-day notice. So Kelvin, thanks for sending that from KCTV. Gabby Lummer wrote that. North Kansas City man denied reimbursement from a city after wrongful tow of 3 cars. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. Everyone must believe in something. I believe I'll go canoeing.